Welcome, Fastpitch Huddle fans. Oh, I think I just went out.
Oh, you're there.
There we go.
Hello, Fastpitch Huddle fans. Comment if you can hear us. Let us know you're on. We're going to just chit-chat for a few minutes. Let some people get live. NCAA Division I rankings. Florida State 11-0, ranked number 1. UCLA 9-0, Florida 11-0, Oklahoma 9-1, followed by Washington 8-1, Alabama 10-0, Tennessee 8-2, Georgia's 9-1, and LSU 9-2, followed by Louisiana 11-0. And cracking into the top 25 is the Illini, University of Illinois, with a 7-2 record.
Yeah.
They looked really good the other day. I watched them a little bit. I think it was Friday. I watched a recorded game, and they looked really good.
Good.
Year.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I hope they can keep it together all year long and get to see them playing later on in the postseason, maybe. That'd be exciting.
Yeah.
How about that home run cycle? Anybody see that?
Oh, yeah.
The other day?
Yeah, that was great.
And we've all heard about hitting for the cycle, but what about hitting for the home run cycle? We had a sophomore transfer from ASU, transferred to Arkansas, playing against the SIU Edwardsville Cougars the other day. Danielle Gibson, she hit a solo home run, a 2-run home run, a 3-run home run, and a grand slam all in the same game. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. That's awesome.
All in 4 innings.
I know, right? Yeah, that must have been a little bit rough, Connor Cutright, huh?
I saw Stephanie's watching, so I'm sure she'll leave some type of comment.
At least she was part of history.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Might not have been on the right side of it, but
you can always say, I was there.
Yeah,
I was
that's right.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was against my team.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's kind of exciting now. Got a few more people jumping on here. Let's say hi, shout out to Kent Watkins, Scott Schaefer, Tyler Scroggins, thanks for joining us. Nicole Eichelberger, Tara Mitchell, Jason Eberly, we missed you guys already. Oh.
Jason, I thought you would be snipe hunting today.
Maybe we can talk about what that means later in the show. What about the Olympics? What are your thoughts on that?
I was really excited when they got back in for the 2020 in Tokyo, but kind of really disappointed in Paris.
Yeah. They're cutting softball and baseball from the 2024 Olympics in Paris. That's going to be a bummer. So hopefully we can get it back in after that, but man, get all excited about it and then
I know.
well let down,
and then,
right?
You know, and I mean, the kids look forward to that.
I know.
You know, you work for that 2024. I mean, we have, I mean, there's kids out there that are working for that. I mean, they want to be there. They want to play at that highest stage, you know? And it's just disappointing that you know, there's the the Olympic Committee that, you know.
Maybe 28. We'll see. All right. Thanks for joining us, Brandon. Don't worry, Maddie Everly. We'll still take you. We'll still take you snipe hunting someday.
So you baseball fans, while we're waiting just a minute to let more people join in, you baseball fans out there, if you're a fan of the Dodgers or the Phillies, the Giants, all the teams that have talked about going after Bryce Harper, do you want Bryce Harper on your team, or would you rather not spend the money? You know, he's holding out, wanting a 10-year, over $300 million deal.
What kind of rating does he have as a player?
Well, I think
haven't
his
looked.
numbers have been down the last year or two. So.
Yeah. I don't know, channel surfing one day and came across ESPN talking about it a little bit. And they were just basically saying his numbers the last couple of years weren't worth the money. So,
10 years is a long, long time to invest into a player.
do you think we'll ever see that happen in softball? That kind of stuff? Do you really? I mean, down 20 years from
it
now?
would be great. Yeah. I mean, obviously the sport has blown up. We're seeing a lot more televised games, even early on.
Did you see the report that now softball, they're considering it at some colleges as a revenue sport?
Revenue earning
Yeah.
sport.
Oh, I guarantee
Absolutely.
it is down at Oklahoma and Alabama.
Yep, the Big 12, SEC, and the Pac-12 schools, I think,
yeah.
I mean, it all stems around TV contracts. So,
Right.
whenever the more you see softball on TV, the more money is going into the sport. Last year, Harper's War was under 2. One to say I heard 1.4 according to Coach Brandon Crozier.
That's interesting.
All right. Well, you want to jump in tonight?
Sure, let's get rocking and rolling. So welcome back, Fast Pitch Huddle fans. Coach DP here alongside Coach Christie and Coach Nolte. Glad to be back. We had a couple weeks off. Sorry for the time off. Coach Christie and I had a trip with our family to Disney, and it was a great trip. Not to get too personal, but we went on the trip last year that was planned with my family, and my mom was not able to make the trip last year. She's fighting stage 4 lung cancer, and she's doing really well right now. So she went with us, and it was outstanding family time. Just couldn't be more blessed and thankful to have the chance, because it was a trip she wanted to do with her grandkids for a couple of years now, and we're thankful that we were able to make it happen. So that's why we were away, but now we're back and ready to rock and roll.
All right. So we kind of left off the last time we talked a little bit about recruiting, and we're maybe going to jump into a little bit of that and talk about some other things tonight. So let's do it.
All right.
So we talked a little bit last week about setting up visits, or not last week, but a few weeks ago, setting up visits, contacting coaches, how to go about all that. But once you've done that, once you've had that initial contact with a coach, how do you maintain that contact? If a coach isn't ready to necessarily have you on a visit, or they've had you on a visit and don't want to make an offer yet, how do you stay in contact with that coach and keep your name, fresh in their mind, to help them with those decisions? What do you think?
Oh, well, I mean, certainly it's emails now. You've got to be proactive and reach out there. Use your resources that you're affiliated with, and just make sure that the school knows you're still really interested in seeing if you can make something happen there.
Mm-hmm. Keep doing research. Yeah. I would say that's a good thing. Keep doing research on the school and their academic side of things. If it's in the spring and you have that downtime until summer, and you've been talking to a coach, go see some games. I know you're going to be busy with high school ball, but if you can get to some games, go see them play, watch the coaches interact with their players. Update some videos and send them updated video footage. That can't hurt. Just keeping your name fresh in their mind and their email, coming through with your emails and your name right in front of them. I think that's going to keep your name in front of them as long as you can. So that's kind of the goal. But what about recruiting etiquette? Let's talk a little bit about recruiting etiquette. There's lots of different ways to do things, but there's definitely some don't do's in recruiting, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
And some of those don't do's, you can avoid if you learn a little bit of recruiting etiquette. So some of the things that I see a lot of, like, at tournaments, you'll have Division I coaches walking all around big time tournaments, and kids get all excited. Even coaches and parents, it's exciting to see those coaches walking around. But one thing you got to remember is they can't talk to you as a player at those tournaments. So as much as you want to go up and talk to them, shake their hand, and those kinds of things, you can wave and say hi, and that's about it. So they can't talk to you, even if you're committed. Even if you're a senior, you can't talk to them during that tournament.
And that's if you're talking Division I coaches.
Right. Now, junior college coaches, they can talk to you anytime, anywhere. They can even come sit in your dugout if they want to, if their coach will allow them. But there's not too many rules for them, and I'm not really sure on Division II, Division III, how different that is from Division I, but I know junior college is a lot different. So.
And the same for parents. Division I coach doesn't want a parent coming up and talking to them at a tournament. We've seen that happen before too. So.
Yeah. What about programs? There's always a lot of teams have folders or something that holds all their programs and pamphlets. But I also see a lot of teams with somebody who's in charge of handing those out. So they're walking around the crowd, taking note of who's there, and they hand that out to the college coach. I think that's good, so you know who's there watching.
Yeah,
but
I would certainly say to the travel teams and organizations out there to try to have someone on your coaching staff that's in charge of that, so you don't have to worry about if it's a parent. It could get kind of awkward, yeah. So one of the coaches, we always do that. Now, some of the tournaments that we're at, we know all the coaches watching, and we've communicated our rosters to them ahead of time. So we might not go bug them during the game, but we'd certainly take note of who all's there so that we can reach out and follow up with. And one of us will typically go start a conversation. But we'd like to be brief, give some information. Pretty much now, that's the way it works. Travel coach walks up, tells coach, hey, here's a player to check out, here's a player to check out, here's what they can do, and just give them that information. You can ask if they're interested or not interested, and that's about the extent of it, if the coaches are following the guidelines.
Yeah, you want to give them an opportunity to watch the game too. That's what they're there for. So if you're in their ear the whole time, it's sometimes hard to focus on what's going on the field in front of them. So, but I think they enjoy that time without overloading them with conversations as well. So,
and we might have talked about this on one of the previous episodes, but as a travel team, I think it's important to have a profile sheet that has every player on the team on one sheet. Some information about the player on those profile sheets. But as a college coach, it's kind of frustrating to try to go up and pick up 13 different sheets if a team has one per player. It just gets to be too much, and it's just not as easy.
Just think about all the trees you kill.
Yeah, there you go.
And that brings me to one of my little pet peeves is
I knew this was
update your websites, please. Please update your websites. You never know when you're out watching games. You might come across some team, and it's sometimes handy just to go to my phone and to pop up the team, and then you go to the roster and it's not updated. So sometimes that can be a little bit downer. So please keep those updated.
Definitely.
And the profile sheets updated as well. Who's committed, who's uncommitted. Because, if we're a coach sitting there recruiting, it says uncommitted, we're asking about the player, and then we find out they're committed. We may have just spent an hour watching the game. So.
And sometimes that's you're like, oh man, that's just a little bit of a letdown.
Bummer. Those of you who are having to make those big decisions, if you're a student athlete and you think you know where you want to go, and you have had contact with other schools or had offers, the proper thing to do or respectful thing to do would be to call those schools that you know you're not going to and let them know. Because as soon as you let them know, now they can move on and they can, offer that out to somebody else to see if they're interested. It's a domino effect. It's a waiting game. So the sooner they know, the better. And we always tell kids all the time, if a coach is upset with you for not choosing their school, then you didn't want to go there anyway. So you've got to make sure that you let those schools know so they can go ahead and move on. So I think that's important in the recruiting process, and that's part of having some good recruiting etiquette. Another thing too, I think coaches, actually I've heard a lot. I've been in some recruiting visits with some players, and some of the things that coaches make sure that they say at the very end after they make an offer to a student athlete is, this is confidential. Please do not share this with any of your teammates. But I also think they want to keep that confidential with the public as well. So definitely keep that confidential, but at the same time, don't go out and post it on social media that, hey, I just got offered a full ride scholarship at, so and such school. A coach isn't going to like that information getting out there. So, try to keep that to yourself between you and your family and your coaches, and that's it. They also don't want players, when you come in, they don't want players sharing that information with each other, because that could cause some rifts and some negative energy between players if they know one kid's getting a little bit more than me, or so and so is getting housing and I'm not, whatever it is. But that can cause some negative emotions between teammates. So
I would say also be very responsive to college coaches. Respond promptly when they reach out, and the same goes as Coach Christie was talking about. Respond quickly when you're not interested in a school. Mm-hmm. Just to keep everything respectful and coaches in the loop.
Definitely, yeah. They don't want to have to chase you around, and if I'm a coach and I'm trying to get a hold of a kid and they're not responding and it's been a few days, then I'm going to take that as they're not interested in me, so I'm going to move on. So definitely be responsive.
And even if you don't want to go to that school, you never know, that coach could end up somewhere else that maybe you do want to go at some point. So
definitely don't want to burn bridges. Keep those contacts. That's great. What about? I've seen a lot of posts lately about being. Actually, there was a really good one. Somebody posted a video in one of our little chatting forums, softball forums, and it was a college game, and it was a player who didn't get in the game, and she was in the dugout, and she was cheering on the rest of her teammates, having fun, getting excited, getting pumped up. Never got in the game, but she was being a good teammate. Mm-hmm. And I love seeing that. And I've seen a lot of posts about what it means to be a good teammate lately. As a coach, how do you handle a player that maybe shows those negative emotions and isn't being a good teammate? It's a tough thing sometimes, and a lot of times it can affect the rest of your team. So it's something I think you have to nip in the butt quickly. But it's also about teaching these kids. Some of them have never been taught.
Right. I definitely believe that, that they just don't know how to respond to it.
Right.
And, you have to give them the opportunity to fix it.
Right. Make some improvements. And sometimes they can't make those adjustments until they're aware of it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So.
Well, a lot of the travel players that we coach in our organization, they're the number one player on their high school team.
Right.
Every one of them, they're used to being the absolute best. And then you put 13 of them together and there's more of a rotation. They have to work harder. They always have to have a positive attitude. That's when you have 13 athletes that you're coaching. If attitude becomes an issue, that makes it easy on who sits out.
Right. I think, for the record, our players are pretty good teammates. But
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What do we? I know some of our players they'll agree. One of the things that we say is if there's tears on the field because of the way you handle a situation, if you look on the lineup board and you see your name's not on there and we see tears, then you're not going to play. If you strike out and you're frustrated because your at-bats aren't going the way you want, then and you have tears on the field, then you're not going to play. We just tell them, if you're crying on the field and you're not injured or sick, then you're not going to play.
Yeah.
So, if we see those tears, then that's just the sign of not being a good teammate and being selfish. It's team before I. That's the way we look at it. Brandon, he calls them vampires, bloodsuckers, energy suckers. Is that what we call them?
Yep.
Or vampire?
Yep.
Yeah. So definitely don't want to be one of those as a teammate. But also teaching kids how to handle failure. Had this conversation with a player the other night. We always do exit interviews, and she won't mind me sharing this, but we do interviews with our players, one-on-one meetings where we kind of let them know where they're at, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are we going to work on, and what are our goals, how are we going to get to our goals. And this particular player said, well, I'm just really frustrated with my hitting. I really want to work on becoming a more consistent hitter. And so Coach DP pulls up the stats and he says, well, let me tell you something. You're batting I think it was like 248. I'm sorry, 448.
448 was 480. She's batted 135 plate appearances.
Yeah.
Struck out 4 times.
Right. So in the grand scheme of things, she's doing pretty good. She's almost getting on base 1 out of 2 times, and in her head, it's not good enough. So we try to get players to look at the quality of your at bat. You may foul 12 pitches off and go deep in the count and have a really good at bat, and then the result is a strikeout, but it still could be a good at bat. You're making the pitch work, you're challenging her, you're putting pressure on your defense.
You just got to say that time, hey, she beat me that time, but she's not going to beat me next time.
That's right. She might have beat me on a good pitch, and you got to give her props, and that's just part of the game. But I think teaching kids how to handle failure and understand that you can't show those negative emotions because it's going to affect your teammates. You got to come in. If you're having a bad day, come into the dugout and cheer somebody else on and pick them up. And then, sometimes it's contagious.
Yeah.
That good energy and excitement.
I think a way for those kids to deal with that is just to take once you point it out to them, then you can give them a way to deal with it.
Right.
As like you were just saying, just change your attitude. I mean, that's a little hard to say and do all the time, but just take a breath, and say, I'm not going to do that.
And then move on.
Move on.
Turn the page and move on.
Yep.
So
you want to transition? You got any more on recruiting, or you want to move
nope,
on?
I don't think we have any questions right now, so let's get
I'm
on to high
excited
school ball.
to get into the next topic. So we're going to talk about the transition into high school softball. Okay, so for our organization and for a lot of states and teams out there, right now, either last week or in the next couple of weeks, it's the transition period from winter softball with your travel team to high school softball, which started today in Illinois. So first, what I want to say, and I've said this before on one of our episodes, high school coaches, travel coaches, you don't own the players, either one of you. Okay, the struggle or the battle between who gets the players win and all that you got to get over that and get out of that. Which obviously in Illinois it's simple. Now it's high school season. So what I would also say is a lot of people maybe downplay high school softball, or high school coaches say travel softball isn't as important. They're both important to the student athlete, okay? We have a lot of small school athletes that play in our organization, and their overall team may not have as many elite players in the high school season, but they still play for their school. The pride that they take in putting their school uniform on and going out there and competing against each other for 3 months. We have pitchers and players that are going to suit it up for 8 months out of the year together, and 3 months they're getting to compete against each other in a little bit different element. And I would say as coaches, you just need to understand that's the way it works, embrace it, and support the softball players.
Mm-hmm.
And now from the softball player side of things, we've had some players say, well, I don't have any talent on my team, or, my coach is our biology teacher, and she or he doesn't even want to coach, but the school's making him coach, or her. Well, guess what? Whether they know anything about softball or not, for the next 3 months, they're your coach, and that's who you need to respect. I would say very, very rare instance should, that not be the case. You need to, as a player, you need to respect the high school coach, regardless of whether they are a longtime softball coach or a rookie coach. And as a parents to high school players, it doesn't matter who your daughter's playing for. If you belittle your coach, your daughter's coach, it's never going to be as good of an experience as it could be. Whether you agree or disagree with the coach, you have to stay supportive or stay out of it. Because the second a student or an athlete stops respecting the coach, it's not going to be as good of an experience as it should be or could be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that there's great high school coaches or bad high school coaches. It doesn't really matter. It's just the next 3 months or however long the season is, that's the coach, and that's the voice that matters.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that if you're struggling with hitting or with pitching, you can't go get outside work. What I would say is, a question was brought up. My high school coach wants me to do everything completely different pitching than what I've been taught. And that can be an awkward situation. You have to work through it and, maybe work on some things on your own outside of high school practice.
I think it's important for players to know that it's okay to ask questions too. It's okay to ask for a coach to explain to you what the reasoning is for making certain adjustments, because if you don't understand what you're doing, then you're not going to be successful at it anyway. So you need to make sure that you understand why it is that they want you to change, and look at it, and if it makes sense and you try it and it works, great. Okay, if you try it and it doesn't work, then it is what it is. But you got to also remember who's writing the lineup. It's the same thing when kids in our organization go to college camps and they say, well, they teach this totally different. That's okay. You're not going to that school now, so you're going to go lots of different camps where they're all going to teach different things. And when you get there, you need to listen, and there might be something that works for you that you can soak up, and there might be something that doesn't work for you. But until you are at that school and they're paying for you to be there, you don't have to make those changes right away, But when you get there, they're right in the lineup, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
So
I think sometimes too, if both coaches would take the opportunity, if they really care about the kid, take the opportunity to give each other a call.
Yeah.
When I was coaching high school, if I knew a lot of the coaches that my kids were working with.
Right.
So I gave that leeway, that I don't know what that latitude of letting the kid
especially
say,
if they're
hey,
comfortable with
I'm
that
used
person.
I'm used to doing it this way. And I said, okay, what's the logic behind it? And
Right.
as long as the kid could say, this is why I do this, I'm like, great, that's fine. That's all you need to know. I said, who are you seeing for hitting? And they would tell me. And if I needed to, I would call and said, let's have a discussion,
Right.
about it. I'm just calling to make sure I'm understanding it correctly.
Right.
So,
I think that's good.
Yeah.
Now, from a player's perspective, some coaches in high school just say, look, I don't really know the game as good as you. I need you to step up and be a leader. And I'd say, we've had some players that run practices for their high school because they've learned through their travel organization different drills, different things. And I'd say that's an excellent situation to be in as a player, to learn some additional leadership. maybe you've got 5 girls on your starting 9 that don't put any extra time into softball other than when the season starts. You know what I say? Good. See how you can handle it.
Become a coach.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to make them better?
Exactly. I mean, that's the name of the game is how do you handle adversity and how do you grow as a person from the challenges put in front of you? It's no different than, we're winning a game 8-0 the first inning, and then in the second inning it's 8-6 or 8-7 and the bases are loaded. I say good. Let's see how we can handle it. If it's 14-0, that's no fun. And if you're on a high school team that's loaded and you win every game, by the 15-run rule, it's harder to improve your game as a player. You can still do it, but if you're in a tough situation for the next couple months and you've got to step up and be a leader and work with the other players on your team and help them improve and hold them accountable and cheer them on, I think it's a great experience. It's going to help you grow as a player, you grow as a leader.
Teach you how to handle adversity, all those things.
And maybe you are a travel ball shortstop or center fielder, but for your high school, now you're a pitcher. That's okay. Do whatever it takes to help your team be the best they can be. And, I think, we've already heard it from a few players today. That they went to their first practice and they're not real sure about things. They already miss how things go with travel ball, but they just have to learn to make the most of it. Obviously, we respect that, but we just tell them, make the most of it, work hard. You as an individual have to do what you can do to make yourself 1% better every single day. And
That's right.
There's a way to do that regardless of the situation you're in.
That's right. That's good. And there are a lot of good high school coaches out there. That's not
Absolutely.
saying that there's not good high school coaches out there, but not everybody gets the same experience. There's a lot of the kids on our travel team, some come from big schools, small schools, big softball schools, and everybody's experience is different. So whatever that experience is, you just got to make the most of it. And you can learn something from everybody.
Absolutely. Now, also, if you're in an organization that's played from September to February and has held you accountable to work on things and take certain swings off of the tee or, get your pitching workouts in, or one big thing that we really work on from September to February is strength and conditioning. And if your team's really pushed that all the way through February and then you go off for a few months for high school ball, you cannot stop that. If you do, when travel ball rolls around in June, you're going to have a lot of catching up to do. And typically with the elite teams, the first week of June, you're digging right again against top 50 teams in the country. So certainly with weightlifting, we look at our softball season, it's a process, okay? It's not about any one game at the beginning of the year that matters. And I would say the same thing for high school softball. Just because you have a game that day doesn't mean you can't lift, okay? Are you trying to get better over the long run, or are you just worried about that one day? Now, if it's regionals or sectionals, okay, maybe you can have a break there. But if you want to become an all-around stud athlete, make sure you make priorities even on game days. There is no such thing as an off day if you want to be the elite.
That's right. That's good. I like it. I'm excited to see some of these kids play in high school season. See what else is out there and see how they handle these. These next few months. I think it'll be good for everybody. So wishing everybody the best of luck as they start their high school seasons.
And I would just reiterate, don't be afraid to communicate with your coach. Just open the conversation so that everything's transparent and you know where your coach is coming from.
And be respectful.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. All right, so there's been lots of posts on social media about a lot of different things. Coach Nolte and Coach DP and I, we spend a lot of our downtime reading about softball.
No, not on social media. I hear it from Coach Nolte and Coach Christie.
No, but it's addicting,
Yeah.
When you're not playing, then you want to be reading about it. You want to be learning about it. But it's also just fun to kind of see what else is out there and what other people are doing and talking about. And one of the things on one of our social media platforms that I've noticed, there's a lot of coaches posting videos of, or even parents, videos of their kids swinging or pitching or whatever it is, and they're asking for help and guidance on how to make their pitcher better. And man, it is tough. Social media is tough. I see a lot of negative comments about some of these players, and it's like these kids are wanting help. They're working on their game. What's not positive about that? Well, how would you not be positive about that? Obviously, yeah, there's going to be little things you need to work on here and there, and you got to find the right way to explain that. But how can you tear apart a kid that just only wants to get better? Those kinds of things just drive me crazy.
I know it's and I think it's a two-edged sword. Parents are really proud of their kids,
right?
So they want to show everybody how hard they've worked and stuff. And, that's fine, but to do that, but what they have to realize, you take that chance when you post on social media.
Yeah, you're making yourself vulnerable.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side of that, people need to realize when people do that, be nice.
Yeah.
If
you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all.
That's right. And, it's real easy to just be nice.
Right.
Be nice.
Well, and you got to realize, too, there's lots of different levels of softball out there. So you got to respect it all. I mean, these kids just want to play. It's a game, right? Mm-hmm. So those are some of the things we've been talking about. But also, the cookie cutter mentality. And if you don't know what that is, that's when someone thinks there's only one way to do things, or that every swing is going to look exactly the same, or every pitcher has to do things the exact same way. And what I think people forget is that not everybody's built the same way. Everybody's built differently. You're made up differently. Some people are taller than others, stronger than others. And you've got to use different strengths to your advantage, and not everything you do is going to look the same as the next.
That's like, they always compare pitchers to Kat Osterman, Jenny Finch,
yeah.
Amanda Scarborough, and all of them. People, they are freaks of nature. Mm-hmm. I mean, they get away with doing some things that ordinary people cannot do.
Right.
I mean, you can try to achieve those things,
right,
but there's just some things that you've just got to have the right body build and fast twitch muscles, right, and all that kind of stuff. But it's just really different.
Yeah. Definitely. Everybody's different. So, a lot of people can try to achieve the same goal, but it's still going to look different. You can tell them the same things, it's still going to look different. And at the same token, there's a lot of different ways to say things, a lot of different ways to explain things, but sometimes we're all saying the same thing. And it's all about, your vocabulary, and the terms that you're using, and sometimes kids learn differently, so you got to explain it a different way, and that's great. But I see people arguing over how to do things, and they're saying the same thing, just using different terminology.
That's a lot of it. There's not. I mean, there's some common terminology,
right?
But what I think looks navy blue, you might think looks black,
right,
or forest green. Mm-hmm. So it's just an interpretation thing.
Right.
And, when I start lessons with kids and so forth, I start with what my terminology is,
mm-hmm,
and so we can get on that same.
Make sure they understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big thing.
Yeah. And as a coach, talking about understanding, we use the rule when we're teaching something, you want to say it, show it, do it. And I think that's important. There's a lot of coaches out there who teach things and they don't necessarily know if those kids are getting it, and the kids are confused, and part of it is because they're not getting a full understanding of what that coach is trying to teach them. You can tell them what you want them to do, but until they see it and they really understand what's the purpose and what's the goal, why, how, show me, tell me, all those things, then they're not going to get it. So we always say it. We're going to explain it, break it down. We're going to show it, demonstrate it, show them what it looks like, and then we're going to let them practice it. And that's the best way for kids to learn. And then you go check and make sure they understand it by having them do it again, and then give them feedback. Give them feedback, let them tweak it, and let them practice it again. And I think that's important as coaches to help kids understand things by teaching them the right way. And everybody learns differently. I'm a visual person. Coach Nolte and Coach DP can tell me things over and over and over again, and I will never remember it because I have baby brain and not a good memory. And
selective hearing.
But until I write it down in front of me, I'm never going to remember everything. So I'm the same way when I write a lineup. I got to write it down, and I got to see it in front of me. So, but everybody learns differently. Some people can hear it, and they can do it. Some people have to see it, and some people, they're going to have to actually go through the process to understand it. And that's just part of teaching and part of coaching. So, but anyway, what else? What do you think?
Oh, no, I just agree. There's more than one way to teach the game, coach the game of softball, and teach the fundamentals. So, I don't get into too many of the controversial things on social media. I just think it's a great sport, and there's a lot of different ways to coach a sport and a lot of different beliefs, and I like all the coaches that keep it positive and keep it motivating. I just feel like that gets a lot further in life. I'm not big on telling people through social media what they are doing wrong, as far as whether it's their swing or how they're pitching or whatever, how they're coaching. It doesn't matter. So when I see that stuff, I try to stay out of it. Try to be a positive supporter for any of the players that I'm involved with, and help them reach their goals. Mm-hmm.
It's just a game. And these kids just want to get better. So,
and have fun doing it.
That's important to remember. That's right. Don't want to take the fun out of it as a parent or coach or internet coach by making it a negative experience for them and making them self-conscious. These kids, and with social media and school and peers, they already have enough to deal with. They don't need adults telling them what they're doing wrong. When they're trying to make themselves better. So. I think that's important to remember, but also when you're posting those things, remember that you're making yourself vulnerable to that. So be cautious.
Well, just part of our coaching staff's philosophy. If a girl does a play wrong or misses a sign, it's not our goal to embarrass them. We wait till they're back in the dugout or after the game to
talk about those situations. Yeah.
You don't want players to be afraid to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the bottom line, and it's just our philosophy.
Make sure your kid's in a safe environment where they feel like they are able to learn and able to put themselves out there, try new things, without feeling like if they make a mistake or they do something wrong that they're gonna be in trouble or they're not gonna be rewarded for their efforts. I think that's important as a parent to make sure your kids are on a travel ball team where they feel comfortable to be able to do those things and talk to their coaches and ask questions and try and get out of their comfort zone a little bit. So make sure that your kids feel that way, as they're playing, whatever they're doing, whether they're playing softball or it's in school or it's just at home, they're trying something new, It's all about experience, and that's the only way you get better at things. So that's about it. That's all I got. Do we have a trivia for tonight, Coach Nolte?
Oh, I haven't looked one up. I probably think of one.
That's okay. Shout out real quick. We've got Laura Mason watching. Vicky Bradley. Hi, Mom. Coach Trotter. Stephanie Cutright. Stephanie, we were talking about Connor and the home run cycle against Edwardsville the other day. I don't know if you were watching earlier. Jackie Cooper, shout out to you. Lots of people on tonight. Thanks for joining us. If anybody has any questions, throw them at us now. Otherwise, we're going to kind of hang out for a few minutes, and then we're probably going to be done for tonight. So, lots of college softball to watch the upcoming weeks. Tournaments over the weekends. I'm looking forward to watching some college softball.
I've been watching it 24/7 in my house.
I know.
I watch it through ESPN. I'll give a shout out to Flow Softball. You can watch a lot on there. I'm getting excited because there's a thing called NJCAA TV that has junior college games on it.
Awesome.
And it's free to watch. So
good deal.
That's really cool.
Good
We
deal.
played. Let's see. We had 3 games yesterday, and then we drove a couple hours, got home, got something to eat, got the kids asleep, and turned on softball.
Yeah, we have every game recorded on our TV that we can get without all those apps. I'm gonna have to get you to help me get set up on some of those because
That's what I thought I'd do a little later.
But anyway, looking forward to that. If you guys have anything else you want to share with us, about college softball, things going on in the sport of softball, topics you want to talk about in the future, or anything you want to hear about, make sure you send those to us. Otherwise, thanks for joining us tonight, and there'll be lots to talk about, I'm sure, in the upcoming weeks as we go through high school season, watching college softball, and prepare for the upcoming summer. So, lots of good stuff. Excuse me.
If you kind of noticed, I've been running a little bit different views tonight. I had a camera go out, so I've been popping through trying to get us all on there at different times. So I'll have to figure out what the deal with that is. It's always something.
All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, then we'll wrap it up tonight, and then we'll jump back on here in the next week or so and get back with it.
All right, thanks for joining. Strive to be 1% better in the game of softball and the game of life. And remember, always respect the game.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Goodbye.